The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Good morning. Today is Wednesday, November 9th. I'm Diana Wong with While You Were Sleeping. While imperial assets and low-grade nuts like Obama and Netanyahu are escalating a war campaign, threatening to detonate the Middle East to effectively trigger a world war against the Eurasian continent, and fabricating a vast sea of lies to achieve this aim, we must ask ourselves, will we be stupid enough to get dragged along in this? Is Obama going to go unchallenged again, despite his long list of heinous crimes against humanity, beginning with his assassination of American citizens Anwar al-Awlaki and his teenage son, his murderous drone campaign over the Middle East and African continent, and his unconstitutional aggressive war in Libya, which led to the extrajudicial murder of Muammar Gaddafi? Will we be stupid enough to overlook the criminal insanity of this president? Will we be stupid enough to permit world war? Because if we are, we're probably also too stupid to deserve our own continued existence, as the allowance of nuclear world war will soon make very evident. Unfortunately for us, it is that quality of too stupid for our own good that the British monetary empire has capitalized on for much of modern history. It is the only way a population of people can be culled and capped. Because if indeed we weren't under the thumb of the oligarchy most of the time, we'll quickly realize that not only has world war always been a strategy of British depopulation, but we'll also come to acknowledge the fact that we're actually significantly underpopulated to effectively deal with a truly inevitable war. One with the forces of nature and everything else that is being hurled at us from outside our little planet Earth. On top of a recent string of anomalous record-breaking earthquakes in unlikely places, like the cluster of strong earthquakes which hit Oklahoma this weekend, Earth is currently looking square in the face of the largest sunspot group since 2005, 17 times the size of our little planet. We would certainly be lucky if this solar plasma-emitting sunspot group passes on by quietly. But what if it doesn't? What if it decides to belch out several billion tons of gas straight at Earth, which is likely to occur over the next 5 days or so? Would we be prepared to deal with that? Or, how about the near-miss asteroid that flew right between us and our moon yesterday afternoon? Certainly there have been numerous cases when an asteroid almost hit us, but that shouldn't be cause for relief. If anything, it should remind us that flyby objects happen more often than we'd like, and one of these days, something is bound to hit. But again, are we prepared for the inevitable? Let's turn to Peter for our weather report and see what he has to say.
All right. As many of you might have noticed, we are in a period of heightened solar activity right now. Coming out of October, the X-ray output of the sun jumped up dramatically as a new sunspot group rounded the bend. By Thursday and Friday, it began pumping out M-class and X-class solar flares, such as this one, an X2 class, late Thursday night. Now, since then, the sun's quieted down a little bit, but this sunspot is still enormous and it's right now pointed directly at the Earth. So what does this mean for us? The corona, the sun's outer atmosphere, is expanding at an enormous rate, averaging about 300 to 400 kilometers per second at the Earth, and nobody knows why. You can see it here blowing sodium off the surface of Mercury. This solar wind is composed of positive and negatively charged plasma, which interacts with both the sun's magnetic field and the Earth's geomagnetic field. The effect here at the Earth is that the day side of our magnetic field gets compressed, while the night side gets stretched out into a long cylinder. As the field gets pumped like this day and night, it induces electrical currents in our ionosphere, which in turn can induce currents in our planet's crust. Sometimes, the sun's corona belches forth a huge chunk of plasma called a coronal mass ejection, which, if it hits the geomagnetic field, can jostle it violently and possibly unleash the charge that has been built up underneath the crust. What we're concerned with here is both a long-term buildup of charge through this pumping of the geomagnetic field, and then a sudden change that triggers the release. Now, both of this sunspot's large flares unleashed large coronal mass ejections on Thursday night, as you can see here, MX. Now, 2 days later, an interesting phenomenon happened on the Earth. Oklahoma, a place that's usually seismically quiet, had a large 4.7 earthquake early Saturday morning. Late Saturday evening, it had a 5.6 earthquake, which is the largest recorded earthquake in Oklahoma history. Then Monday night, another magnitude 4.7 struck. Now, Oklahoma is merely continuing the trend that we're seeing in the United States, where typically quiet areas are having record-breaking earthquakes, such as back in August with the Colorado and Virginia earthquakes. Now, by no means do we have a complete understanding of the relationship between solar activity and earthquakes, but it would be prudent to use this period to rapidly advance the study. Because remember, 200 years ago this December, a series of devastating magnitude 8 earthquakes hit the New Madrid region of Arkansas and the surrounding areas. And this was during a time when the sun was going through a similar period of transformation as today. Back to you.
The solar system, as well as the vast galaxy, is Earth's neighborhood. And if we are to effectively understand all its threats and complexities, we quickly realize that 7 billion people, while it is a milestone, is simply nowhere near enough to explore every corner of the galaxy. It is in this light that we have to look at the British oligarchy, typified by a present-day British monetary empire which has run the transatlantic system to the ground. And that in the face of a rising Eurasian power, typified by Russia and China, which threatens to improve the conditions of mankind, world war and depopulation targeted against these Eurasian powers is the only natural course of action for the British. As we speak, governments are toppling in the European Union as a result of the accelerating breakdown crisis, and prime ministerships are vacated at rapid speed, beginning with Slovakia's Iveta Radikova, then Greece's Papandreou, and now Italy's Berlusconi, all yielding their position as prime minister in the face of increasing ungovernability. Frankly, the transatlantic system is hopeless. However, if you look to the east, it's almost a different world, as Russia and China are beginning to take on those very extraterrestrial challenges that define human beings, as we saw yesterday with the launch of the Russian Phobos Grunt probe, bound for the Martian moon Phobos, taking with it a Chinese Martian probe and a little capsule of bacteria and eukaryotes to test the long-term survivability of life outside the Earth's protective magnetosphere. Or take Russia and China's approach to the Middle East, the nations of Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and others, compared to the British and the United States treatment. While London and their assets in the US and Israel are looking to use these nations as cannon fodder to achieve a world war, China and Russia welcomes Iran and Pakistan to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization for Regional Stability and Economic Development. And Russia's Prime Minister Vladimir Putin, in a speech at the recent SCO meeting, committed the SCO to help Afghanistan restore peace and stability via economic development. The expressed intent of Russia and China are clearly a threat to the existence of the ailing British oligarchy. And this progress will not go unchallenged, not without the threat of nuclear war. However, at the end of the day, the British can't launch world war against Eurasia without the nuclear and military capability of the United States. And their only access to that is a violently deranged Barack Obama, whose immediate ouster from the presidency is long overdue. That's all for your morning report. Stay tuned for the weekly report with Lyndon LaRouche. This is Diana Wong signing off.